The emergency broadcast crackled through Dr. Marcus Thompson's car radio as he navigated the rain-slicked streets of downtown Atlanta. This is not a test. All citizens are advised to seek immediate shelter. Do not attempt to help those displaying symptoms of static. Consume the message. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles white against the leather. 3 hours ago, he'd been analyzing blood samples at the CDC, documenting an unusual pathogen that seemed to reanimate dead tissue. Now, the city outside his windshield looked like a war zone. Abandoned cars littered the highway, their doors hanging open like broken jaws. In the distance, pillars of smoke rose against the darkening sky. His phone buzzed frantically, 17 missed calls from his daughter Emma at Georgia State University. When he finally got through, her voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, they're everywhere. We've barricaded ourselves in the library, but Jake got bit and he's changing." Marcus's heart hammered as he instructed her to stay put, promising he'd reach her within the hour. But as he turned onto Peachtree Street, he saw them, dozens of figures stumbling through the intersection, their movements jerky and unnatural. One turned toward his headlights, revealing a face half torn away, milky eyes reflecting the light like a nocturnal predator. Across town, police officer Rebecca Martinez responded to what dispatch called a multiple casualty event at Grady Hospital. She'd seen plenty in her 15 years on the force, but nothing prepared her for the chaos that greeted her. The emergency room resembled a slaughterhouse. Bodies littered the floor, medical staff cowered behind overturned gurneys, and patients, if they could still be called that, wandered aimlessly, attacking anyone within reach. Rebecca's partner, Officer Daniel Brooks, grabbed a fire axe from the wall. "Whatever's happening, bullets don't stop them," he shouted over the screams. Saw one take 6 rounds to the chest and keep coming. They worked together to evacuate survivors, Rebecca's military training kicking in as she organized a defensive retreat. Among those they saved was Dr. Amelia Foster, an infectious disease specialist who clutched a briefcase like her life depended on it. "I have data," she gasped between breaths. "From patient 0. This started 3 days ago with a John Doe they brought in from the airport. Whatever this is, it's not natural." Meanwhile, in a suburban neighborhood 20 miles away, high school teacher Robert Nash watched his quiet street transform into a nightmare. He'd been grading papers when his neighbor, sweet elderly Mrs. Patterson, crashed through his fence and attacked his golden retriever. Robert grabbed his baseball bat, but hesitated. This was Mrs. Patterson, who baked cookies for the block party every summer. That hesitation nearly cost him his life. Only his teenage son Tyler's quick thinking with a garden shovel saved him. "Dad, we need to get Mom and Katie and get out of here," Tyler urged, already more composed than most adults would be. They barricaded their home, gathering supplies while Robert's wife Jennifer tried desperately to reach her sister's family across town. Through their windows, they watched neighbors they'd known for years transform into mindless predators. As the first night descended, these survivors and countless others faced an impossible reality. The dead were walking, and they were hungry. Each group, Marcus racing to save his daughter, Rebecca and Daniel protecting survivors at the hospital, Dr. Foster safeguarding potentially vital research, and the Nash family preparing to flee their home, would soon discover that the real challenge wasn't just surviving the zombies. It was maintaining their humanity when civilization crumbled around them. By dawn, Atlanta would be unrecognizable, and these ordinary people would be forced to make extraordinary choices. The outbreak spread faster than anyone anticipated, following highways and flight paths, turning America's interconnected society into a liability. But in the darkness, small pockets of resistance began to form. Groups of survivors banded together, sharing resources and information, slowly learning the rules of this new world. The most important lesson came quickly and brutally: the zombies were attracted to sound, they didn't tire, and they never stopped hunting. As Part 1 closes, each group prepares for the dangerous journey ahead, unaware that their paths would soon converge in ways that would determine not just their survival, but the fate of humanity itself. The Georgia State University Library had become a fortress of overturned tables and shattered dreams. Marcus Thompson abandoned his car 3 blocks away, the streets too clogged with debris and abandoned vehicles to drive any further. He sprinted through the chaos, dodging both the infected and the terrified students fleeing in every direction. The campus he'd visited during Emma's orientation now resembled a battlefield. Inside the library's main entrance, a makeshift barricade of furniture and textbooks created a funnel point. "Stop right there." A young man with a lacrosse stick stepped forward, his eyes wild with fear. "Are you bit? Are you sick?" Marcus raised his hands, catching his breath. "I'm looking for Emma Thompson. I'm her father." "She called me," Emma's voice cut through the tension. "Dad." She pushed past the defenders, throwing herself into his arms. Marcus held her tight, relief flooding through him as he confirmed she was unharmed. But his relief was short-lived. Her friend Jake lay on a study table, his skin graying, veins darkening beneath the surface. "How long since he was bitten?" Marcus asked, his scientific mind already calculating. "For hours," Emma whispered. "It started slow, but now." Jake's eyes snapped open, no longer human but something else entirely. The transformation happened faster than anyone expected. Across the city, Rebecca Martinez led her group through the hospital's underground parking garage. Dr. Foster clutched her briefcase while Daniel Brooks supported a wounded nurse. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit echoed off concrete walls. "Emergency exit, 50 yards, Rebecca commanded, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. They'd gathered 12 survivors, including 2 children whose parents hadn't made it out of the pediatric ward. The group moved as one, fear binding them together more effectively than any training. But as they reached the exit, they found it blocked by abandoned ambulances. "We go over," Daniel decided, boosting the first survivor onto an ambulance roof. That's when they heard it, the distinctive shuffle drag of multiple infected approaching from behind. Dr. Foster suddenly stopped, staring at her phone. "My God," she breathed. "I'm getting similar reports from colleagues worldwide. Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo, this is happening everywhere simultaneously. This isn't a natural outbreak. It's too coordinated." Rebecca didn't have time to process the implications. The first wave of infected rounded the corner, moving faster than the typical shambling they'd witnessed inside. "Move! Everyone move!" The Nash family's escape took a different turn. They'd joined their neighbors, the Washingtons and the Coopers, forming a small convoy heading for Fort Benning. The military base, according to emergency broadcasts, had established a quarantine zone. But the highways told a different story. Miles of abandoned vehicles created a metallic maze. "We're going to have to go on foot," Robert decided, surveying the gridlock ahead. Jennifer Nash organized their supplies while Tyler helped the Cooper's young daughter, Lily, stay calm. They'd managed to pack camping gear, water, and enough food for a week. It seemed like so much when they loaded it, but looking at the journey ahead, Robert wondered if it would be enough. As they abandoned their vehicles, joining a stream of other refugees, something caught Tyler's eye. "Dad, look at the birds." Robert followed his son's gaze. No birds flew overhead. No insects buzzed. Nature itself seemed to be fleeing. The exodus from Atlanta became a river of humanity, all flowing toward the promise of military protection. But among the refugees walked those in the early stages of infection, their symptoms hidden by darkness and desperation. Dr. Foster's revelation haunted Rebecca as they finally reached clear streets. She commandeered an abandoned SWAT van, loading her survivors inside. "Doctor, when you say this isn't natural, what exactly do you mean?" Foster opened her briefcase, revealing sealed vials and encrypted hard drives. Patient 0, the John Doe from the airport, his blood work showed synthetic markers. Engineered proteins. Someone made this thing. Before Rebecca could respond, her radio crackled to life. "Any units, this is Fort Benning. We are at capacity. Repeat, we are turning away refugees. Seek alternate shelter." The hope that had driven thousands toward the military base evaporated. In the SWAT van, in the refugee column, and in the library where Marcus now led his daughter's group to safety, the same realization dawned. There was no safe zone waiting for them. No government rescue. They were on their own in a world that had fundamentally changed in less than 24 hours. As dawn broke over Georgia, painting the sky blood red, the survivors faced a new reality. The exodus wasn't leading them to safety, it was just the beginning of a longer, more dangerous journey. The real challenge would be staying human when humanity itself seemed to be ending. The abandoned shopping center outside Macon, Georgia became humanity's crossroads. What started as a rumor, military establishing checkpoint at Riverside Mall, had drawn thousands of desperate survivors. Marcus guided Emma's group of 15 students through the chaos, his trained eye cataloging the breakdown of social order happening in real time. Families huddled together, their possessions reduced to what they could carry. Armed civilians formed loose coalitions, eyeing each other with suspicion. "Dad, look," Emma pointed toward the mall's main entrance where soldiers had erected barriers and tents. The sight of organized military presence sent a wave of relief through the crowd. But Marcus noticed something off about their positions, their movements. These soldiers seemed more interested in keeping people out than protecting them. Rebecca's SWAT van arrived as the sun reached its zenith, the heat adding another layer of misery to the gathered masses. She'd monitored radio chatter during the drive, reports of similar gathering points across the southeast, all promising safety, supplies, and answers. Dr. Foster hadn't stopped studying her data, cross-referencing with updates from surviving colleagues worldwide. "Officer Martinez," Foster said quietly, "I need to share something. The infection pattern, it's following pre-established transportation routes too perfectly. Someone knew exactly how this would spread." Before Rebecca could respond, a commotion erupted near the military checkpoint. The Nash family had just arrived, Tyler supporting an elderly man they'd helped along the way. They watched as soldiers forcefully turned away a family, the mother pleading that her young son needed medical attention. "They're not letting everyone in," Jennifer observed, her teacher's instinct for patterns kicking in. "Look at who they're accepting, mostly young adults, no visible injuries, traveling light." Robert's jaw tightened. "They're cherry-picking. This isn't a rescue operation." The crowd's desperation reached a tipping point when gunshots rang out. Not from the soldiers, but from within the crowd itself. Two groups fighting over supplies, their conflict spreading like wildfire through the packed masses. The soldiers responded by sealing the checkpoint entirely, weapons raised. "Citizens, disperse immediately." The commander's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This facility is at capacity. Return to your homes and await further instructions." The absurdity of the order, return to homes that no longer existed in a world that had fundamentally changed, sparked rage among the survivors. But it was what happened next that revealed the true nature of their situation. A young soldier, no more than 19, broke ranks. "They're lying," he shouted before his commanding officer struck him down. "There's nothing inside. No supplies, no medical facility. They're just," his words cut short as he was dragged away, but the damage was done. The crowd surged forward, desperation overcoming fear. Marcus grabbed Emma, pulling her back as the mass of humanity pressed against the barriers. "We need to leave. Now." That's when he spotted them, Rebecca and her group, including the doctor whose briefcase might hold answers. Their eyes met across the chaos, a moment of recognition between competent survivors. Dr. Foster was already moving, having reached the same conclusion. "The shopping center's a decoy," she told Rebecca urgently. "Classic containment protocol, gather the infected and uninfected together, let them thin each other out." Rebecca made a command decision. "Everyone who wants to live, follow me." She led her group away from the main area, circling toward the mall's loading docks. The Nash family, seeing organized movement, fell in behind them. Marcus and Emma's group joined the exodus, students supporting each other as they moved. Behind them, the checkpoint dissolved into violence. Soldiers fired warning shots that quickly became less discriminatory. Infected individuals, drawn by the noise and gathering, began appearing from the surrounding woods. The promised safe zone became a death trap, exactly as designed. In the relative quiet of the loading dock area, 3 groups of survivors finally converged. Rebecca took charge, her police training invaluable. Sound off. Who's injured? Who's been exposed? The grim inventory revealed they'd assembled 37 survivors with various skills: a doctor, a CDC scientist, police officers, teachers, students, and ordinary citizens who'd simply refused to give up. But trust came hard. Daniel Brooks kept his hand near his weapon as different group members sized each other up. "How do we know none of you are infected?" someone challenged. Dr. Foster stepped forward. "The incubation period is 12 hours maximum. Symptoms manifest within 6. Anyone who's made it this far clean is likely to stay that way." It was Tyler Nash who asked the question everyone was thinking. "So what now? If the military's compromised and the safe zones are fake, where do we go?" Marcus looked at the assembled survivors, strangers united by circumstance, suspicion, and the shared will to survive. "We stop running toward their solutions," he said firmly. "We start creating our own." As night fell on day 2 of the outbreak, their makeshift alliance faced its first test. They had supplies to ration, watches to organize, and a destination to choose. But more importantly, they had to decide whether 37 individuals could become something more: a community, a resistance, perhaps humanity's last hope. The safe zone had been an illusion, but the danger they faced together was all too real. The abandoned Riverside Elementary School became their sanctuary for 3 days. 3 days of careful rationing, strategic planning, and slowly building trust among 37 strangers bound by survival. Marcus had established a makeshift laboratory in the science classroom, working with Dr. Foster to understand the pathogen. Rebecca organized security rotations while the Nash family coordinated supplies and helped maintain morale among the younger survivors. It was during a leadership meeting on the 3rd night that everything unraveled. They'd gathered in the principal's office: Marcus, Rebecca, Dr. Foster, Robert Nash, and 3 other survivors who'd emerged as natural leaders. Among them was Christopher Vaughn, a former Army sergeant who'd arrived with his own group of 8 survivors. Vaughn had been instrumental in fortifying their position, his military experience invaluable. "We need to talk about Louisville," Vaughn said, spreading a map across the desk. "My contacts confirm there's an actual CDC facility there, still operational. Underground bunker, completely secure." Rebecca studied the route. "That's 300 miles through infected territory. We'd lose people." "We'll lose people staying here too," Vaughn countered. "Food's running low. We've already had 2 close calls with infected groups. It's only a matter of time." Dr. Foster looked troubled. "Christopher, you said contacts. How are you communicating with anyone?" "All networks are down." Vaughn's expression didn't change. "Military channels. Some frequencies still work if you know where to listen." It was Tyler Nash who noticed it first, the slight bulge under Vaughn's sleeve where a bandage wrapped his forearm. The teenager had been helping with medical inventory and recognized the specific way it was wrapped. Tyler caught his father's eye, a silent communication passing between them. But before Robert could act, Emma Thompson entered with urgent news. The perimeter watch spotted movement. Large group approaching from the southeast. As the leaders rushed to respond, Tyler pulled his father aside. "Dad, Mr. Vaughn's bandage, I saw him change it yesterday. There was a bite mark underneath." Robert's blood ran cold. "You're certain?" "Completely. But he's not showing symptoms. It's been at least 48 hours. They didn't have time to process this impossibility." The approaching group turned out to be infected, over 100 strong, drawn by some unknown signal. As the survivors mounted their defense, Vaughn took charge with remarkable efficiency, positioning defenders and coordinating their response. The attack was repelled, but at a cost. 3 survivors were injured, 1 bitten. As Dr. Foster tended to the wounded, she made a shocking discovery. The bitten survivor's wound showed unusual characteristics: the infection wasn't spreading normally. "Marcus, look at this," she whispered, drawing him aside. The bite pattern, the infection rate, it's different from what we've seen. That's when the pieces fell into place. Marcus confronted Vaughn privately, Rebecca backing him up. You've been bitten, haven't you? But you're not turning. Why? Vaughn's facade finally cracked. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a bite mark that should have killed him days ago. I'm immune, he said simply. About 1 in 10,000 people are. The military knew. They've been collecting us. Collecting you for what? Rebecca demanded. Vaughn's laugh was bitter. What do you think? We're walking antibodies. They need us to develop a cure, or a weapon. The CDC facility in Louisville isn't a sanctuary. It's a laboratory. And they don't care how many survivors they have to sacrifice to get us there. The betrayal cut deep. Vaughn hadn't been leading them to safety, he'd been herding them toward captivity. Worse, his immunity meant he'd been in contact with military forces this entire time, reporting their position and numbers. The infected attack, Marcus realized with horror. You led them here. You've been thinning our numbers, making us easier to control. Before Vaughn could respond, alarms rang out. Not from their watchpoints, but from within the school. Several of Vaughn's original group members revealed their true colors, attempting to corral the survivors. But they'd underestimated the bonds formed over 3 days of shared survival. Emma rallied the students. Jennifer Nash coordinated the families with children. Daniel Brooks led a counteroffensive. The brief but intense conflict split the group, with Vaughn and his conspirators driven out into the night. In the aftermath, trust lay shattered. They'd lost 12 people, some to Vaughn's group, others who simply fled during the chaos, no longer able to believe in any leadership. Dr. Foster made a crucial decision, sharing her research with everyone. No more secrets, she declared. If some people are immune, if there's a cure possible, we all deserve to know. 25 survivors remained, their faith in each other fragile but reformed by shared betrayal. They'd learned a harsh lesson: in this new world, the infected weren't the only monsters. Sometimes the greatest threat came from those who still drew breath. As dawn broke, Marcus addressed the group. We've lost our shelter and our trust. But we've gained something too, the truth. We know what we're really fighting against now. Not just the infected, but those who would use this crisis for their own ends. The betrayal had torn them apart, but it had also revealed their true enemy. The question now was whether 25 traumatized survivors could find the strength to keep fighting when they knew the deck was stacked against them from every angle. The abandoned Preston County Hospital sat like a tomb against the West Virginia mountains. 2 weeks after Vaughn's betrayal, the 25 survivors had become nomadic, staying ahead of both infected and military patrols. But Dr. Foster's calculations had led them here, to a medical facility that might hold the key to understanding immunity. According to the data Vaughn left behind, Foster explained to the gathered group, the military identified several immunity markers. If we can access this hospital's genetic sequencing lab, I might be able to develop a detection test. Marcus studied the building through binoculars. Power's definitely out, but the backup generators might still have fuel. The real question is what's waiting inside. Rebecca had learned to read the signs of infected presence: scattered bones, claw marks on doors, that particular stillness that meant predators lurked nearby. This hospital showed none of those signs. Instead, it looked deliberately sealed, windows boarded from inside, entrances barricaded. Someone fortified this place, Daniel observed. Question is, are they still in there? The Nash family had evolved into the group's heart. Robert and Tyler scouted the perimeter while Jennifer worked with Emma Thompson to organize their mobile camp. The students had become remarkably resilient, their youth an asset in adapting to this harsh new world. It was Lily Cooper, the 8-year-old girl traveling with them, who made the first contact. She'd wandered slightly from camp, following a butterfly, a rare sight in these dark days. A figure in a hazmat suit emerged from a hidden entrance, moving slowly to avoid frightening her. "Hello, little one," a woman's voice came through the suit's speaker. "Are you alone?" What followed was a tense negotiation. The figure introduced herself as Dr. Patricia Williams, Chief of Staff at Preston County. She'd sealed the hospital with 12 staff members on day one of the outbreak, turning it into a research fortress. They'd been monitoring military frequencies, learning about immunity, conducting their own investigations. "We've been waiting," Dr. Williams said after removing her suit inside the decontamination chamber. "Waiting for survivors who weren't military, weren't compromised. We have something to show you." The revelation that awaited them in the hospital's sealed laboratory defied everything they thought they knew. Dr. Williams led them to a secure observation room where 3 infected individuals were contained, but these weren't mindlessly aggressive. They showed signs of recognition, problem-solving, even communication with each other. "The pathogen is evolving," Williams explained. "In most cases, it destroys higher brain function. But in approximately 2% of cases, something else happens. The infected retain cognitive ability while gaining enhanced physical capabilities." Dr. Foster's hands shook as she reviewed the data. "This changes everything. If the infected can think, plan, coordinate, they already are," Williams interrupted. "We've intercepted communications suggesting organized infected groups in major cities. They're hunting the immune." Marcus felt the weight of this knowledge. That's why the military wants immune individuals so badly. Not just for a cure, but because we're being hunted by an evolving enemy. The hospital staff had made another discovery. Using equipment that survived the infrastructure collapse, they'd identified a pattern. The immunity isn't random. Williams showed them genetic markers on screens powered by the emergency generators. It's inherited. If one parent is immune, there's a 50% chance their children will be too. Emma grabbed her father's arm. "Dad, Mom died in the first wave. But if you're immune..." Marcus had suspected but hadn't dared hope. A quick test confirmed it. Both he and Emma carried the immunity markers. Similar tests revealed that Tyler Nash was immune, though his parents weren't. 3 others in their group also tested positive. 8 immune individuals in one group, Williams marveled. That's statistically impossible unless... Rebecca finished the thought. Unless we were drawn together. Unless something about the immunity creates a subconscious recognition. The philosophical implications were staggering, but they had more immediate concerns. Williams' team had developed something crucial, a rapid immunity test that required only basic medical supplies. But they'd also intercepted military communications about an impending sweep of the area. "They know we're here," Williams admitted. "We estimate 12 hours before arrival. You need to decide, stay and fight for this facility, or take what we've learned and run." The group faced their hardest decision yet. The hospital offered resources, equipment, and 12 additional skilled survivors. But it was also a trap, a fixed position the military clearly knew about. Dr. Foster and Williams worked frantically to download all research onto portable drives, preparing for either eventuality. As the hours ticked down, Marcus gathered the immune individuals. "We're not just survivors anymore. We're carriers of humanity's future. That immunity in our blood might be the key to ending this nightmare." Tyler Nash, wise beyond his 17 years, asked the question that haunted them all. But what if the cure isn't about destroying the infected? What if it's about evolution, them or us? Outside, storm clouds gathered over the mountains. Inside, 25 survivors and 12 medical staff prepared for a battle that would determine not just their fate, but possibly the future of human evolution itself. The discovery had given them hope and purpose, but it had also painted targets on their backs that glowed brighter than ever. The decision was made in the 11th hour, they would stand and fight. The Preston County Hospital offered too many resources to abandon, and Dr. Williams' team had rigged defenses over their months of isolation. As military vehicles appeared on the horizon, 37 survivors prepared for a different kind of battle. Marcus coordinated with Williams to create a multi-layered defense. The hospital's design worked in their favor: limited entry points, reinforced doors, and a backup generator system they'd carefully maintained. But their real advantage was knowledge. They understood both their enemies now. The military wanted them alive, and the infected wanted them for reasons still unclear. Rebecca positioned their fighters strategically. Remember, the military won't use heavy weapons. They need the immune breathing. She'd trained the students in basic tactics, turning Emma's group into a surprisingly effective unit. Tyler Nash had become her second in command, his generation's comfort with tactical video games translating into real-world strategic thinking. The first wave came at dusk, not military, but infected. Hundreds of them, moving with disturbing coordination. Through the barricaded windows, defenders could see they weren't the mindless infected of the early days. These moved in formations, some carrying crude weapons, others testing defenses systematically. They're being directed, Dr. Foster observed from the command center they'd established. Look at the patterns. Someone or something is controlling them. The siege began with psychological warfare. The infected didn't immediately attack. Instead, they surrounded the hospital and waited. Then came the sounds, not random moans, but rhythmic, almost musical. It was deeply unsettling, suggesting an intelligence that challenged everything they believed about the infection. Jennifer Nash worked with the children, keeping them calm and occupied in the interior rooms. But even she couldn't ignore what happened next. One of the infected approached the main entrance and spoke. "We know you are there." The voice was distorted but undeniably attempting communication. "Give us the marked ones." Daniel Brooks nearly dropped his weapon. "They can talk?" Dr. Williams rushed to the observation point. "This is accelerated evolution. The pathogen is adapting faster than we calculated." The standoff broke when military forces arrived, creating a three-way conflict. Colonel Harrison's voice boomed through speakers. "Survivors in Preston County Hospital, you are harboring fugitives and stolen military assets. Surrender the immune individuals, and the rest will be granted safe passage." It was a lie, and everyone knew it. But it sparked something unexpected. The intelligent infected turned their attention to the military convoy. What followed was a battle that redefined the war for survival. The military found themselves fighting an enemy that could think, plan, and adapt. Infected individuals used cover, flanked positions, and even operated abandoned vehicles. The hospital survivors watched in horrified fascination as their two enemies tore into each other. "This is our chance," Rebecca decided. "While they're distracted, we evacuate the vulnerable." But Marcus had a different idea. "No. This is bigger than our survival. We're witnessing the future of this conflict. We need to document everything." Using the hospital's remaining equipment, they recorded the battle. Infected leaders emerged, directing their forces with hand signals and vocalizations. The military's technological advantage crumbled against an enemy that could think and showed no fear. Some infected even seemed to be protecting others, suggesting a social structure. The turning point came when one infected individual, larger than the rest, with distinctive markings, approached the hospital's main entrance alone. It raised empty hands in what was unmistakably a gesture of parley. Against all logic, Marcus and Dr. Williams went to meet it, protected by Rebecca's overwatching rifles. The creature that faced them had once been human but was now something else. Its eyes showed intelligence, purpose, and incredibly, emotion. When it spoke, the words were clearer than before. "We are not enemies. The marked must choose evolution or extinction." Before more could be said, military snipers ended the parley. The infected leader fell, and its death triggered a frenzy among its followers. They assaulted both the military and hospital with renewed fury, but now their attacks seemed driven by rage rather than strategy. The siege lasted through the night. By dawn, the military convoy was decimated, and the infected had retreated, carrying their dead, another behavior that suggested growing humanity. The hospital stood, but barely. Windows shattered, walls breached, supplies depleted. They'd survived, but the cost was measured in more than resources. "We can't stay," Robert Nash voiced what everyone was thinking. "This place is compromised. Both sides know where we are now." But the real impact was philosophical. The immune individuals faced an impossible question. Were they witnessing humanity's replacement? And if the infected were evolving consciousness, morality, and society, what did that mean for the war between species? Tyler summed up their dilemma with characteristic directness. If they're becoming more like us, and we're fighting to survive at any cost, who are the real monsters? As they prepared to abandon Preston County Hospital, taking Williams' team and all the research they could carry, one truth was undeniable. The siege had shown them the future, a world where the lines between human and infected, between evolution and extinction, were blurring beyond recognition. The abandoned underground research facility near Oak Ridge had once split atoms. Now it would determine if humanity could split its own evolutionary path. 3 weeks after the hospital siege, the combined group of 44 survivors had followed Dr. Williams' pre-outbreak knowledge to this Cold War relic. Here, protected by concrete and isolation, they made a discovery that changed everything. Dr. Foster stood before the assembled survivors, her face grave. Beside her, Dr. Williams operated equipment they'd salvaged and restored. On makeshift screens, genetic sequences scrolled past, the culmination of months of desperate research. The pathogen isn't killing humanity, Foster began. It's trying to merge with it. The infected who retain intelligence aren't accidents. They're the intended outcome. Marcus stepped forward to explain further. Every immune person carries a dormant version of the pathogen. It's already in us, has been since first exposure. The question is whether it activates naturally or... He paused, the weight of revelation heavy. Or we choose when and how it happens. The room erupted. Parents clutched children, friends turned to each other in shock. Rebecca maintained order, but even she felt the foundations of hope cracking. They'd been fighting to stay human, only to discover humanity itself was evolving beyond recognition. Emma Thompson raised her hand, her young voice cutting through the chaos. You're saying we're all going to become infected eventually? Not infected, Dr. Williams corrected. Evolved. The pathogen is a catalyst. In most people, it triggers too quickly, destroying the mind before integration completes. The immune have a slower integration rate, allowing consciousness to adapt. She showed them tissue samples from the intelligent infected they'd encountered. These beings aren't zombies. They're humanity version 2.0, stronger, faster, connected through biochemical signals we're only beginning to understand. They retain memory, personality, even emotional bonds, but enhanced. The revelation split the survivors into factions. Some, led by Daniel Brooks, wanted to destroy all research and continue fighting. We stay human or die trying, he declared. Others, particularly younger survivors who'd seen the intelligent infected's capabilities, wondered if resistance was futile. Tyler Nash asked the crucial question. What about a middle path? Can we control the evolution? Foster and Williams exchanged glances. Theoretically, yes. We've developed a serum that could trigger controlled transformation in immune individuals. You'd retain your consciousness, memories, and values, but gain the enhanced capabilities. It's been tested on infected tissue samples, but never a living person. The debate raged for hours. Parents faced impossible decisions about their children's futures. The immune grappled with their role as bridges between species. Through it all, a darker truth emerged: the military had known this all along. They weren't trying to cure the pathogen but to weaponize controlled evolution. Outside their sanctuary, the world was reshaping itself. Radio intercepts suggested massive intelligent infected communities forming in major cities. The military had retreated to hardened facilities, developing their own evolution programs using captured immune. Traditional human civilization was crumbling, but something new was rising from its ashes. Robert Nash voiced what many felt. We're talking about the end of humanity as we know it. How can we make this choice for our species? We can't, Marcus replied. But we can make it for ourselves. And maybe, by choosing consciously, we can influence what humanity becomes. The group established protocols. No one would be forced to evolve. Those who chose transformation would be monitored, supported, and studied. They would become pioneers of conscious evolution, attempting to preserve human values while adapting to survive. The first volunteer surprised no one who knew her. Dr. Patricia Williams stepped forward. "I'm 63 years old. I've lived my human life fully. Let me be the test case for our future." The procedure was simple, a single injection of the controlled serum. Williams lay in the makeshift medical bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment and anxious faces. For hours, nothing happened. Then the changes began. Her vital signs fluctuated wildly before stabilizing at levels that shouldn't support human life. Her skin took on a subtle luminescence, her eyes gained an inner light. When she woke 12 hours later, she was transformed but still fundamentally herself. "I can feel them," she whispered in wonder. "All the infected, like a vast network. But I'm still me. I remember everything, feel everything. Just more." The success gave hope, but also deepened the divide. Some saw it as salvation, others as surrender. Emma made her choice next, with her father's support. "Dad, we're already changing. This way, we guide it." One by one, volunteers stepped forward. Not all were immune. They discovered the serum could work on anyone, though the immune had higher success rates. Each transformation was a vote for a different future, a conscious choice to evolve rather than be consumed. As Part 7 concluded, humanity stood at a crossroads. In the Oak Ridge facility, two groups prepared for different futures. Some would remain traditionally human, preserving the old ways. Others would step into evolution, hoping to build a bridge between what was and what must be. The choice was no longer about survival, it was about what survival meant. Would humanity's future be found in resistance or adaptation? In preservation or transformation? As the first evolved humans began to explore their new capabilities, one thing became clear: the war between species was ending, but the struggle for humanity's soul had just begun.